Thanks everyone for your patience. This is a quick presentation on the tips and tricks for quiz 1. So let's go ahead and get started. So hopefully by now you've either reviewed the textbook and the previously recorded lecture session. But really, as you go through the material, I would invite you to think about the following question and whether or not you can answer them in your own words. So the first one would be, why do we need to study child development? Like, what benefit do we gain by studying this? As children age, what are the type of changes that occur, and what good does it do us as a society, as a discipline, to study children by their age and how they change? And that leads us to that third question that I've listed here. What are some themes? So as we study child development, what are the themes that keeps on recurring, right? So list those and see if you can explain them in your own words as well. So as we talked about the enduring themes in child development, the things that keep popping time and again, one of the things that pops up is called nature and nurture. So this is a question of who we are growing up as children, adolescent, and even adult. Is that more based on nurture, so the genetics blueprint that we've been given, or is it more nurture, the environment in which we were born in and or grew up in, or is it a combination of both? So go back to the text and try to see if you can find a way to answer this. Like, what do we know based on the research that's been done so far? And speaking of research, this is kind of the last 2 points I want to draw your attention to. So focus a little bit of your attention either in the textbook or go back to the lecture slides, publisher slides, either way, about different research design. So what that means is, now that we've asked various questions that child developmentalists are interested in, how do we answer them? So if you're interested in knowing, is it more nature versus nurture, or a combination of them that influences our IQ? How do you go about answering that question, right? Another research design question that might be worth noting for is, parents care a lot about academic performance, right? And part of academic performance is reading, how well a child reads, and that influences how well they do in school. So if you were a researcher, if you wanted to see what are the factors that influences children's reading ability, you might look into children's reading habits at home. You might look into how many books they own. You might look into parental education. You might look into what school they attend and how reading is introduced. You might look into all those factors. Research design is, how do you go about examining those factors? Do you set up an experiment where you put people into different groups? You test them before and after to see how well reading has improved based on the intervention? Or do you look at children over time? So looking at children in first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way into eighth grade maybe. And so that's a longitudinal design, see how reading changes based on age, based on experience. So research design is essentially, how do you go about answering the question that you're most interested in? So go back to that section, look at various research design. And again, you don't have to become this top-notch researcher that needs to design your own question, but you need to have a basic grasp of, if I'm interested in A, which design would I pick to answer question A, right? And lastly, before we wrap up, I just wanted to point to a common kind of error people tend to make when they're forming conclusions. So for instance, correlation. For those of you who have had correlations taught in class before, it's how A is related to B and how B is related to A, right? It doesn't necessarily go one direction or another. Versus causation, you're saying A leads to B. It's one directional. A goes to B. An example that I used to give in class is, for instance, we tend to observe death in swimming pool goes up as ice cream sale goes up. So if I am someone who doesn't really know a lot about correlation and causation, I'm going to make a statement, very general blanket statement, and says, as ice cream sales goes up, it causes drowning to go up as well. That's not really a fair causation. Like, you can't really draw that, but it seems to make sense on a certain level. So what that might mean is there might be a third variable involved. So it's not so much that because I bought ice cream, therefore drowning goes up because I'm being careless. What's a third common factor between the ice cream sale and drowning? Think about this. When does ice cream sale tend to go up, even though we can consume ice cream year-round? When do people tend to hang out around water, swimming pools, where drowning might occur? So third common factor might be summer. So the two things are related. So the ice cream sales going up and the drowning going up. It's a positive correlation between the two, but really one didn't cause another. It's not because I bought Ben and Jerry, therefore neighbor kid, drowned. Not so much that. So we want to be careful as we're pointing out the relationship between different variables. Are the variables just related to one another? So as one goes up, another one goes up or down. What's the relationship between them versus we know for a fact A causes B. So you just want to kind of be careful as you read through different statements and as you become a consumer of research, how you're drawing conclusions and reporting them. Okay, so hopefully this kind of answers what you need to focus on in Chapter 1 in prepping for the quiz. I know some of you have already taken the quiz, so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm going to send out this slide soon, but if you have any questions, I will be available during office hours and during class time to answer them. Okay, take care.